This is the Memory and Communication session of the Understanding Dementia course. My name is Marielle Kay, and I am a speech and language therapist based at the Wokingham Memory Clinic. For the past 26 years, I have worked with people with dementia and with their families, as well as taking care of my own father, who had dementia for the last 12 years of his life. This session will be divided into 4 parts, with a pause for questions and discussion between each section. In part 1, we'll look at the use of aids to support memory in dementia. In part 2, we'll start to think about some of the more tricky communication scenarios that can arise, such as knowing what to say if someone asks to go home when they are at home. In part 3, we'll consider what it might feel like to have frequent memory lapses and how these feelings could influence how a person reacts, as well as what they might need to hear from us. And in part 4, we'll cover some general communication tips, as well as thinking about our use of questions and about how to respond to someone who is very repetitive. We'll also look at how to help if the person is stuck for a word, and how to respond if they seem to be seeing something that isn't really there. And finally, we'll look briefly at life story books as an aid both to memory and to conversation. Some of these memory difficulties are, I'm sure, part of our own experience. But for people with dementia, they can become much more frequent and can have a significant impact on day-to-day life. In Alzheimer's disease, which is the commonest form of dementia in this country, typically memory problems feature early on, which is not necessarily the pattern for all dementias. Usually, it is the recent memories that are affected, but over time, more distant past memories can become confused. This process of deterioration from recent to remote memories can be visualized as memory rolling back. Most people use memory aids to a greater or lesser extent. The commonest everyday memory aids include diaries, calendars, various means of writing lists, systems for avoiding losing items such as keys, glasses, having phone numbers on a one-button redial. You can even add photos to these in the large button phones. And basic pillboxes with the days of the week to help you remember medication. It's also worth knowing that if people are on multiple tablets, their GP can ask the local pharmacy to put the medication into what's known as a nomad pack to help them keep track of what to take and when. When you're finding that a bit more support is needed, you might start by writing appointment reminders, to-do lists, etc. on notice boards or whiteboards and put them in a prominent place. Using timers or setting up alarmed reminders can improve the likelihood of a person reading and acting on these written prompts at the correct time. There are watches and clocks that also prompt the day and the date, and devices to help you find missing items. Also available are gadgets that can record short spoken messages and play them back when the person walks past the device, sometimes used, for example, to remind people to lock up and take the key when leaving the house. To help with remembering to take medication, there are automatic pill dispensers which will sound an alarm and open up a compartment at the correct time. These usually require a family member to set up. The ability to track a person's location via their GPS signal on their phone is increasingly commonplace, but there are also a range of tracking devices that can be worn on the wrist or attached to belts or handbags. If you don't live with the person you're caring for, but you're becoming concerned for their well-being and safety, increasingly there is technology available to help. There are property exit sensors that can be linked to your mobile phone to alert you to when the person is going out. There are video door phones that can enable you to see and to communicate directly with callers. There are movement tracking systems such as Just Checking or Canary Care that can give you a readout of where and when the person has been moving around within their home, so that you can check on, for instance, when they're going to bed or whether they appear to be going into the kitchen to prepare meals, etc. Increasingly, families are also making use of CCTV in keeping an eye on relatives, although of course here there has to be consideration to privacy and consent. I think there's tremendous potential for the use of virtual assistants, such as Amazon Echo or Google Assistant, in supporting people with dementia. Ideally, these need to be supported by family and introduced early, perhaps for specific tasks and with key phrases written down, such as, "Alexa, what day is it today? Hey Google, do I have any reminders? Alexa, play my 60s music album. Hey Google, phone Mary." So, can someone with dementia learn to use a memory aid? Well, the answer is yes, certainly some people can. Often it takes more prompting and repetition than you might imagine. So, for instance, if they come to you for information that you know that they have recorded, you might have to prompt the aid. You might have to say something along the lines of, "Oh, didn't you write that down in your diary?" People with dementia also can be resistant to using memory aids on the basis that they want to try to remember. But I would always encourage them to think of their routine use of specific memory aids as an insurance policy that could enable them to keep their independence in the event of their memory getting worse. It tends to be the case that the simpler the better in terms of memory aids, so simple one-step memory aids are better than more complicated systems of reminders. And if the person has set up the memory aid themselves, they're more likely to remember it. So, for example, if they are able to write clearly, then encourage them to write on the whiteboard rather than doing it yourself. And give it time and stick with it if you can. And then finally, on a slightly different point, to be aware that getting a new cooker, a new washing machine or microwave can present difficulties for the person with dementia. So to try and avoid making these kinds of changes if you can. And when an item just has to be replaced, some families have succeeded in buying used items on online sites such as eBay. So finding identical products in good condition, which then overcomes that problem. In terms of sourcing memory aids, here are a range of websites that I've found useful, but there are others. And I'd say if you know what you're looking for, it's always worth trying an internet search for those specific items and obviously paying attention to reviews, etc. Social services will also offer advice and sometimes are able to supply and fund specific memory aids. So it's worth giving your social services department a call, asking for adult social care and then for an occupational therapy assessment for assistive technology. There's an organisation called the Contented Dementia Trust. We've included a link on a subsequent slide. They've proposed a very helpful concept of thinking of our memories from past to present as stored in a photograph album that naturally falls open on today's page. Each photograph represents facts or specific memories that are set onto a background of feelings that those memories evoked at the time that they occurred. With the onset of dementia, the look of the photograph album begins to change. It's as though some of the photographs, so some of the things the person's been told or some of the things that have happened to them, have either not been stuck into or have fallen out of their album. And as the dementia progresses, the blanks increase and memory problems start to become more apparent. As the person is able to hold on to fewer facts about recent events, it becomes harder for them to make sense of what's going on around them. And the tendency is for them to turn back to older pages of their album where they have more memories. And that can be the explanation for things like the father mistaking his daughter for his wife, or mistaking his wife for his mother, because those are the pages in the album that he's looking at in his mind's eye at the time. So we'll leave it there in terms of thinking about memory, and we'll pause for some questions and discussion.